The case of R. v. Brown is a landmark decision in English criminal law that established a critical limit on the defense of consent. It ruled that a person cannot validly consent to the infliction of actual bodily harm or more serious injury, even if the activities are conducted between consenting adults. The principle is that for certain categories of harm, the public interest overrides personal autonomy. Hello and welcome to Landmark Case Laws Simplified. Buckle up as we explore the fascinating world of R. v. Brown together. Here is a breakdown of the case. The appellants were a group of men who, over a 10-year period, willingly participated in consensual sadomasochistic encounters. The activities, which were filmed by the participants, involved the infliction of injuries such as whippings. Crucially, all participants were consenting adults, the activities were carried out in private, and no one required medical treatment or made a complaint to the police. In their judgment, the House of Lords, by a 3-2 majority, upheld the convictions of the men for assault occasioning actual bodily harm, under Section 47 of the Offences Against the Person Act 1861, and unlawful wounding, under Section 20 of the same Act. The court held that the consent of the victims was not a valid defense. R. v. Brown authoritatively determined the limits of consent in cases involving violence or injury. The key principle is that consent is no defense to actual bodily harm in sadomasochism. The House of Lords ruled that a person cannot effectively consent to the infliction of actual bodily harm or more serious injury, such as wounding, for sadomasochistic pleasure. The court drew a distinction between consensual acts that cause no injury or merely transient and trifling hurt, like a simple tattoo or ear piercing, and those that result in a greater degree of harm. Once the level of injury reaches actual bodily harm, the state has a legitimate interest in intervening, regardless of consent. Lord Templeman famously stated that society is entitled and bound to protect itself against a cult of violence, and that activities which breed and glorify cruelty are not in the public interest. He also noted the unpredictably dangerous and degrading nature of the practices. The court acknowledged that consent is a valid defense in some situations where harm is a foreseeable byproduct, such as in lawful sports, like boxing, tattooing, or legitimate medical treatment. However, it drew a line at activities where the intentional infliction of pain and injury was the primary purpose, finding no social utility in such practices that would justify an exception to the criminal law. R. v. Brown remains the leading authority on consent and harm, but its legacy is complex and continues to be tested and distinguished in later cases. The case raises fundamental questions about the limits of personal freedom and the role of the state. Until next time, stay inspired and keep chasing your dreams.